I tried a sip of my own drink, forcing an immediate smile to cover my tightening facial muscles. "What's that?" Sarah giggled, stepping between Ashley and I. "You know," I glanced into the cup. "I thought it was a few things, but nope. Apparently just straight vodka." "Sounds good." Ashley's brow creased. "You guys are just as much not 21 as me." "Okay, Ashley." Sarah rolled her eyes. "Chill your bills. You're like 15. "And technically we are way more 21 than you," I laughed. "I'm not super good at numbers, but pretty sure age literally does work like that. You're like a fetus, basically. It's amazing how well you can talk, actually." "I can do more than that." She folded her arms, grumpily watching the window. "Getting you kicked off the boat, for one. You think they still make people walk the plank?" "The sass!" I laughed, handing her my cup. "One sip. If your parents see this, they're gonna castrate me. If they ask you, cut your mouth and needed to sterilize it." "It's 1 a.m. Ashley grabbed the cup and took a swig. "The only ones up are you idiots. And the captain, hopefully." I went to take the drink back before she put up a finger. "You know what I just realized?" Sarah let out a laughing breath, drawing our attention back to the window. "I've been waiting for the sun to go down since, like, 8 o'clock. My eyes scanned the horizon line, an endless sea of churning water met with an equally grim sky. Mist and fog wandered aimlessly, the faintest speckle of red light suggesting the sun was at the lowest point it would ever be tonight. Daunting islands occasionally intersected its dead hue. "Damn you, Alaska, and your weird-ass location." I nodded. "Do nocturnal things just, like, cry all the time?" "They get 30 whole days of night in the winter." Ashley shrugged, taking another sip. "Worth it?" The lights of the shared cabin space flickered faintly, the entire room decorated to feel like some kind of log cabin had been washed out to sea. My eyes softly scanned to spot a deck of cards lying disheveled atop a table in the center. "You guys played Jungle?" I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, I thought it was past my bedtime." Ashley rolled her eyes, going to drink again before I finally snatched the cup away. "Don't think so." Sarah followed my gaze to the cards. "The only game I know is Go Fish, and people always yell at me for wanting to play pairs of 2. "People?" Ashley scoffed, following us as we pulled out chairs. "John is literally the only one who would care about a dumb rule like that. Neurotic much?" "Pairs of 4!" I frowned. "Obviously. How hard is it to get 2 frickin' cards?" "Case in point." Ashley slapped up the cards and reshuffled them. "I feel like you don't realize how tiny you are." I hissed. "You might just slip over the railing if you're not careful." Threatening my little sister aside, Sarah looked between us. "What exactly is happening here? What are we playing?" "Jungle." I swiped the cards from Ashley, reshuffling them several times. "We'll also need a piece of paper to keep track of tricks and scores and such." My eyes landed on Ashley. "My notebook's in my room." She grudgingly stood. "I want a mixed drink when I get back." "No!" I called over my shoulder. "Yes." The door closed behind her, wind softly battering the windows. A few snowflakes began to silently drift past the frosted glass. "Is this at all like euchre?" Sarah looked up from the cards, deep in thought. "Jungle, I feel like I kinda remember." "Yes!" I nodded excitedly. Almost exactly, except there's no partners, and there's a segment of play where, like, you enter the jungle or whatever. It's basically kind of like, screw the dealer, since the number of tricks bet can't equal the number of cards, like, in your hand. "Oh." Sarah nodded far more slowly. "I've never played euchre." My mouth stitched closed, head dropping to the table. Footsteps slowly approached from the deck, leisurely at first before the cabin doors suddenly slammed open with a deafening crack. Wind howled into the room to scatter the cards in every direction. I flailed to recollect them, slapping my entire body against the table only to fail miserably as they pinwheeled to the floor regardless. Sarah scrambled to the carpet to stop the runaways. "Valiant entrance, Ashley." I slumped in defeat, finally looking back to her. "Yes, the storm's really picking up." My words stopped as I readjusted my focus. Ashley wasn't at the door. The wood fluttered violently against the interior of the room, hinges creaking as if blown open. Scratch that. I collected what cards I could as I stood up to look closer. A form darted past the doorway before rapidly swiveling back around. Its hand snapped against the doorframe, head throwing itself inside. "The captain's not in the room." Ashley was ghastly white. "I just checked." Okay." I stole a glance at Sarah as she stood up as well. "Cool. Did you get the paper?" "Forget about the paper." She shook her head. That's not... I think something's wrong." "Bathroom break?" Sarah cocked her head. Or like he's taking a nap. The boat's kinda just going straight anyway, not sure how much work he needs to do." "Right, and for the record," I smirked, "it's not the room, it's called the wheelhouse. Yeah, I paid attention during the tour." Would you two shut up?" Ashley looked genuinely panicked. "Look outside, we're too close. I'm going to check the engine room." "Too close to what? What?" I cried as she suddenly darted back outside, leaving the door ajar. "Where are you? Ashley!" I turned back to Sarah, both of us hastily slapping the cards under books to hold them down before tearing outside. Snowflakes lashed at our faces like needles, the spray of the surf nearly drowned out by howling wind. Whatever storm had been brewing in the distance was rapidly gaining on us. "What's up with her?" I looked both directions, hastily picking one to follow. What did she mean, too close? "I can't find anyone." Ashley suddenly reappeared from a lower deck door behind us. "Where the hell is Her words were lost to splintering wood and fiberglass as the boat pitched violently upwards. My stomach reached my throat as the floor fell beneath me and I flipped head over heels. The ground turned into the sky becoming the ground again before the deck slammed the air from my lungs. A hard, metallic crack resounded, my hands clutching blindly at the deck railing only to slip away with blood. In my blurry vision, I could already tell it wasn't mine, warm and dark against my palm. It took several seconds to get my bearings back, either the world physically shifting around me, or my vision swaying side to side. With exhaustive effort, I was able to latch onto the handrail for support, shakily bringing myself back to my feet. The blood on the railing again met my gaze, the terror at what this meant washing over me before I even checked over the side of the boat. The body floated lifelessly in the water, face down as its limbs trailed into the murky depths. Blood slithered into the surrounding darkness. "Sarah?" I cried in panic, barely getting the words out. Ashley was second to her feet, staggering and clutching her head as the boat suddenly slipped again, pitching to throw both of us against the far side. The screech of the motor was deafening, blades of the rotor breaching the surface. "Land." Ashley wobbled, grasping at a handrail. "I knew it. We hit." Fuck. I just gripped at my hair, quickly shaking off my jacket. Sarah fell over the side. She... Oh, fuck. I stepped up onto the railing only to steal a glance behind me, to finally see the state of the boat. The island daunted the horizon, rocky reef outcropping leaving the beach still obscured and far away. The bow of the boat was sheared upwards, fiberglass splinters clinging to a massive rock that surged with ocean waves. Several smaller cliffs held the stern in place, motor billowing toxic black smoke into the snow and wind. Water now spilled over the port side of the boat, pitching it further sideways.
Jesus!
I grabbed at the railing and looked back to Sarah's body in the water, now pinned against a rock.
Fucking hell, she's not moving. Get someone, help!
My terrified eyes flashed back to Ashley, looking for some form of confirmation.
I going after her, right?
Ashley was stunned into mute terror, shaking her head wordlessly. The boat again rocked, deep groaning echoing beneath us. The final decision was made for me as I slipped more than jumped from the railing. My arms flailed as I fell, the blistering cold surface immediately rising far above my head. I slapped upwards in panic, instantly catching one of Sarah's limbs as the surf pushed me against the same rock outcropping.
Yo, hello?
I cried between mouthfuls of seawater, one hand not nearly enough to keep me both above the surface and away from the rocks as I pulled Sarah's head above water. Blood trailed down her forehead, tinging her face a dull pink as her cold, blue lips let water pass straight through. It was immediately clear she was dead. I had never before held onto a body that was still warm, no one looking out from open eyes. It was chilling enough to leach the energy from my limbs. I grabbed her arm all the same, rolling around the side of the rocks to finally enter an area deep enough to fight against the surf. I called up to Ashley hysterically, seeing her nowhere on deck. My muscles were quickly locking up in the cold, treading water feeling like trying to run in a nightmare. My brain screamed for my muscles to move, but somewhere along the way, everything slowed down. The surface continuously slipped past my head, each new wave enough to swallow us whole. As I blinked through the snow and spraying water, either my mind was making rocks out to be something far more haunting, or I finally noticed several more bodies in the water. All were face down, wet shapes dark and hunched. A huge splash echoed behind me, a large form entering the water and capsizing several times before resurfacing upside down. A yellow kayak. My numb limbs immediately reached for it, fingers fighting to uncurl in order to get a grasp. Finally, I heaved my entire chest onto the plastic, wrenching Sarah up beside me with the last of the energy I had left. Ashley called over the edge of the deck, though I couldn't hear her, waving her arms frantically. I stared up, no words escaping my waterlogged throat, let alone with enough force for her to hear me. She tried again, making bigger motions and pointing toward the other side of the ship, mouthing something incoherent. A deafening percussion suddenly cut through the fog, shaking snowflakes from the boat and causing Ashley to stagger backwards. A toxic column of black smoke began to spill from the engine room below deck. After staring for several seconds in horror, Ashley resumed waving even faster, walking along the deck as if trying to get me to follow her. I obliged with what strength I had, using the current for help as I kicked off rocks with enough force to clear the bow of the boat. The kayak on-ramp was crushed beneath jagged spines of earth, the deck itself now acting as its own on-ramp as waves continued to breach over the railing. Ashley held onto the railing up deck, eyes sinking in dread at the way Sarah floated limply along beside me. All my energy was expended just keeping her on the kayak, though. I knew it wasn't doing any good. The two of us finally crashed against the deck, my foot snagging against the railing as Sarah was limply deposited beside me. The kayak cracked against the floor as well, continuously snapping against my head before I finally lifted it off back into the rolling waves. I struggled to pull Sarah across the slippery deck, continuously being bowled over by new waves before we finally reached the higher side of the tilted vessel. I I wasn't even sure if my wet, frozen lungs were pulling in air anymore, my heart rate both alarmingly fast and frighteningly low.
Is she breathing?
Ashley knelt down in panic, slapping at Sarah more than checking her.
Hello? Sarah, come on, you awake?
Sarah's lids didn't even flutter. Body so heavy, only dark, frozen water trickled from her mouth. I tried to check for a pulse, only to again find my fingers unable to respond. They were locked up in tight curls as if deformed. I knew the answer anyway. The blood from Sarah's head wasn't pumped out. It slowly trickled. I don't think... I spoke softly, no words needed to convey the situation. She's... No. Ashley shook her head, barely flinching as another deafening grinding noise left more black smoke to spill from beneath us.
We dry her off, get her new clothes.
The boat pitched again, position more precarious than I would admit to. The rocks were now the only thing keeping water from dragging down the entire vessel. Massive gashes revealed ribbing down below. Any loss of ground here would be the end. Ashley, I shook my head slowly, barely able to get to my feet. I don't think...
Shut it!
She snapped, dragging Sarah's limp body upwards all the same.
She's not going... Get help! I'm sorry.
I felt crushing weight from every side.
She hit her head on the way down. There's just no way. Like I give a fuck!
Ashley snapped.
Fucking find someone, fucking help! Okay, alright.
I snapped upright.
Stay here.
I launched into a sprint down the deck, half kicking, half slamming my weight against every door in my path. A sick feeling had already welled up inside my stomach. I felt it long before I checked to be sure. For the entire ship to have not immediately come out in a panic the minute we struck the rocks.
There's no one here.
I rushed back in Ashley's direction, having snatched a heavy wool blanket from one of the rooms.
Ashley, there's no one.
My feet screeched on the wet floor as I slid to a stop, eyes staring at the empty deck. A puddle shimmered where Sarah once lay, a 50-50 mix of water and blood. A trail of the same substance curved directly into the closest room, door ajar.
Ashley?
I repeated, quickly rushing into the room.
There's no one here. The entire ship is empty.
She blinked. Ashley stood at the foot of the bed, gaze flashing to me in a sort of deluded excitement before she noticed the blanket in my arms and quickly grabbed it. She unfurled it with a flick of her wrists, slapping it over Sarah's corpse in the bed. Her waterlogged clothes lay in a heap beside the door, pale, ghastly skin barely visible above the bundle of covers. The pillow was saturated, her hair splayed out like rotting skin.
Ashley,
I shook my head.
Listen, I don't know. There's no one here.
Ashley finally stopped, looking to me.
The captain, the crew, everyone,
I repeated.
I checked everywhere except below deck. They're not here. I don't know what they're just gone. Why would they go below deck?
Ashley shook her head, moving to me.
That doesn't make any sense. Did you check? I checked. I snapped. Everywhere. That's not the point. They're not below deck. I didn't check because it's fucking on fire. There's no way anyone's down there. I don't understand it either.
The boat screeched against the rocks, suddenly vaulting onto its other side, changing which railing was above water. Ashley slammed into me, both of us tumbling to the ground. Water bubbled up from seemingly nowhere, sloshing from where the walls met the floor and sliding down the carpet. Sea foam sprayed through the doorway, each new wave now reaching just inches from the door frame.
We have to call for help.
I suddenly felt my heart grip in fear.
We're going to sink. The captain's... the wheelhouse. They'll have a radio or something. It's locked.
Ashley shook her head.
We can't. What do you mean? Where is everyone?
I struggled to grab the bed railing, Everything tilted easily 30 degrees into the water. One more good wave would surely capsize the entire ship.
Just gone.
I continued with a surety even I didn't understand.
Fell off the boat, died, I don't fucking know. When?
Ashley cried, both of us finally struggling to our feet with various handholds.
We were here the entire time, no one even left the rooms after dinner. Where are they? Where could they have fucking gone?
My mind flashed to the countless bodies I had seen, or thought I had seen in the water. Pinned against the rocks, practically sinking, they were so waterlogged. That couldn't have made any sense. When could any one person have jumped ship, let alone so many, without us noticing?
I don't know, I simply responded. Nothing makes any fucking sense. If you don't believe me, look for yourself, but we're going to fucking flip. We lose the radio, we're as good as dead. We need to get to the upper deck. Okay.
Ashley looked back to Sarah's corpse.
Only if we take her up too. Not an option, I snapped. Ashley, we can come back for her. It's not worth it. Is,
Ashley hissed, moving toward her.
Fuck you, John. I saw her blink. What if it was you? Does she have a pulse?
I reached for Ashley only to be swatted away.
Ashley, does she have a goddamn pulse? I can't tell.
Tears blurred as Ashley's teeth clenched.
I can't fucking tell. I can't feel anything. I can't. We come back for her.
I hastily lowered my tone, stepping back from Ashley and putting out my hands.
You can run back and check the minute something goes wrong, but we have to try something. I'm not leaving you down here.
Ashley's eyes stared somewhere into the distance between me and the corpse, her lips pursed tight.
Let's go.
I finished before she could protest, reaching out to grab her wrist. She swatted my hand away with a venomous stare, but slowly followed along as I quickly exited the room. The weather had worsened considerably, the island in the distance no longer visible as driving sleet met the rolling waves below. The motor of the boat had since stopped sputtering, now lying dead silent. Even the deafening spray of the waves seemed to have been muffled to a near inaudible drone. For the moment, at least, the boat appeared to be holding steady, an eerie eye of the storm. Our shoes squeaked on the slick deck as we carefully navigated the tilted surface, frigid water lapping at our heels. Reaching the stairs to the upper deck couldn't have been more of a relief. The surf quietly fell away beneath us as I reached the top step. The gusting wind was significantly more violent with the slight change in altitude. I put up my hand to shield my eyes against the sleet, pressing forward toward the wheelhouse. The door was locked. I had half figured I would think of something on the way up, figured I would cross this bridge when I got to it, or that something miraculous might happen. Instead, I tried several more times to wrench the door free with no success, not even sure how much strength I was exerting with my numb muscles. I knew full well how strong the glass was, but it didn't stop me from throwing my palm against it in a desperate attempt to get some kind of result. The glass barely shuddered, my arm feeling the full brunt of the force instead. I cursed through clenched teeth, going to try again before I realized how quiet it was behind me. I looked over my shoulder to see Ashley still there, though turned away from me, staring down at the deck below. Her mouth was pursed tight, wide eyes showing no signs of blinking. I went to speak, but she seemed to feel my gaze on her own, her mouth quietly uttering a barely understandable phrase. Body in the water. I pieced the phrase together in my mind as I hastily walked next to her. My eyes scanned her face once more before slowly falling to match her gaze down below. Her words were more chilling than I had anticipated. There was nothing in the water, no corpse bobbing up and down in the churning waves. Instead, in a puddle of water a ways up the deck, a gory mess of something that may have once been human lay mangled and broken. It was several feet past the surf, past where the waves could have possibly deposited it if it had washed over the railing. As if it had crawled. The look on Ashley's face suggested it might not have done that unseen. My words barely had the force to escape my lips. Is that... It looked like some stripped, skinless husk of a human being had managed to hang on to life just enough to make it back onto deck. Jesus fucking Christ. I sweated, watching the way its entrails drifted behind its flayed limbs, caught on deck shrapnel and torn like tissue paper. I was almost able to smell its stench from the considerable distance, hear the way its skin twisted and writhed in the wind. Hello. Ashley spoke more to herself than anything, eyes unable to leave the sight despite beginning to address me. John, is that a person? What happened to them? Hello? I called louder for her, seeing no response from the mess down below. It moved, John, Ashley whispered. I think they were alive. For a bit. Caught in the propeller? The words escaped my lips. Had to be. Then the others, everyone, went overboard. I hastily rescanned the surface of the water, again seeing nothing. If any bodies had ever been there, they had long been carried away by the current. I turned back to the wheelhouse, pulse thundering in my head as waves of nausea gripped me. Okay, I pleaded to myself. I just have to. My words trailed off as I searched the nearby area for something to smash the window with. Any sort of heavy tool would be down in the engine room. Ashley, I started, spinning around to catch her gaze. When you were looking for the captain, did you see any sort of workbench down in the engine room? Maybe like a toolbox? You can't go down there. Ashley shook her head. You said yourself the whole place is... I don't know. I don't remember. If I'm in and out... I calculated in my own head, barely noticing that both Ashley and I had started to shiver uncontrollably again. Or if I use a t-shirt to cover my face. John! Ashley suddenly breathed out behind me with a sound more akin to vomiting, her hands gripping the railing tightly. It just moved. I rushed back to the railing, peering down to see that the carcass had indeed dragged itself considerably further onto deck. But it wasn't just going anywhere. It's already halfway to Sarah's room. Ashley was breathing heavy. How the fuck did it? When did... Did you see it move? My eyes ravenously scanned the fleshy mess, the only signs of movement its tattered flesh whipping in the wind. Did you actually watch it crawl? No, I don't think so, she squeaked, white knuckle grip tightening further. How is it? Hello! I shouted as loud as I could. You down there? A trail of gore led from where it had once been, but even that was slowly being washed away. Soon there was no indication it had ever moved at all. And yet it was nearly to the doorway of Sarah's room, 1, maybe 2 arm lengths away. Keep an eye... I'm going to check,
I nervously stood back up from the railing. You stay here. We don't have time for this. I need to get to the engine room. Check what, then? Ashley looks sick, eyes shivering with intense focus on the corpse. Don't go near it. Something isn't right. I know it's scary. I swallowed hard. But that's just a person. A seriously injured person. Maybe they're just hurt bad on the surface, but are still holding on. They must be in so much pain. No! Ashley suddenly shouted as I went to move. John, fucking stop! Her sudden outburst stunned me in my tracks, her eyes reaching me only for a second before she quickly returned her gaze to the thing below. Don't go near it, she hissed. John, something isn't right. Everything is wrong about this. You have to trust me. Ashley, I put out my hand. Okay, but if... Trust me this time. Her teeth clenched. Haven't I earned that? Stay here. Stay with me. Tears leaked from her eyes, though she still wouldn't look up from the lower deck. Trust me, she repeated softly, grip readjusting on the railing. John is trying to get into Sarah's room. I don't know how or why, but I just know that if I look away from it, it'll move again. It'll get her. Okay. Okay. I tried to steady my breathing in an act to calm her down as well. Ashley, I know. I know literally everything has gone to shit. I know this is insanely stressful and fucked up, but we are going to drown. That's it. If we stay here, if we do nothing, we will either sink or freeze to death. Do you understand that? There are no monsters, no crazy zombies. There is just us and this very real danger. Nothing is going to get Sarah, but she will die if we don't move. Go to the engine room, then. She just shook. I'm not moving. I'm staying right here. Perfect. Yes, okay. I nodded. That's fine. That's what I wanted anyway. I'll leave the body alone. Would that make you feel better? You'll go around the stern to get to the engine room. Ashley spoke numbly. Yes, sure. I breathed. I'll stay as far away as possible. Silence for several seconds. Please hurry. Ashley shivered. If you're not... The corpse launched into a spasmodic sprint, arms lurching at horrible angles to claw itself forward. Its flesh stretched and writhed to paint the floor with blood, entrails slithering behind it as it disappeared into the darkness of Sarah's room. Silence descended as we stood with strangled stares, nothing coming or going from the room. Snow began to build up on the frozen deck. Ashley choked on her own breath, my eyes flashing across the boat to freeze on a dark form in the waves. Several surges later, it came tumbling over the railing, a tattered, heavy pile of flesh more ghoulishly deformed than the last. My skin began to prickle with a sensation unlike any of the numbness before it, spiders crawling up and down my spine. I have to go. I spoke to myself more than Ashley, trying to beat my own cowardice rapidly catching up with me. If I don't go below deck now... Before Ashley could speak, before I could think twice, I turned blindly, my feet squeaking against the metal steps as I rushed down. As soon as I reached the bottom level, I was assaulted by the full-force stench of decomposition. The air blurred with a heavy musk, as if buzzing with flies. A ghoulish, silent stillness emanated from Sarah's room.
the newly washed over corpse lying motionless. I hastily wrenched my eyes from the scene, turning the stern and nearly slipping on the tilted deck before slapping my hand against the door to the lower level. Whatever smoke had been billowing out had stopped. Either the smoke was now rising too fast to escape, or the boat was taking on water. I wasn't sure which was worse. I pressed my shirt up against my face and crouched low before wrenching open the door. A puff of foul air exploded from the other side, enough to knock the wind from me, but also enough to see there was no fire. It was nearly pitch black inside, murky, dark water already several feet deep as it lapped against the staircase. I wrestled out my phone, fumbling with frustration before finally able to tap its flashlight on. That's when the boat pitched. I felt the hard crack of the staircase beneath me as everything inverted and my phone made a hard splash into the distant water. Darkness rushed into every corner, icy water enveloping me as I spiraled like a limp doll. I thrashed to right myself and tread water, panicked glances revealing nothing in the darkness. The door had shut behind me. I put out my hands wildly, grasping for a handhold but coming up with nothing. Finally, I hit something solid, numb fingers unable to tell the texture or size of it. I scrabbled to get a better grasp, instead feeling it dislodge from its position and splash into the water beside me. After frantically re-grabbing it, I could tell it was rectangular in shape and extremely heavy. Whatever it was, I would just have to pray that it would work. I tucked it under my arm hastily, now fumbling my way through the water toward what I desperately hoped was the direction I had come from. That's when I began to hear the screams overhead. They were muffled and faint, but all clearly from the same person, saying one phrase over and over. My heart rose in my throat, adrenaline eating at me. There was no doubt that it was Ashley. I moved faster, swinging my arms in large arcs in an attempt to find a handhold. Finally, I slammed my wrist a bit too hard against a railing, pain shooting through me. I pulled myself up hastily, relief consuming me as I felt a hard, sturdy step beneath me. The screams had either grown louder, closer, or both. I could now barely make out certain words, most easily understood being my own name. John. Door. There. I lurched to a stop, hand having already twisted the knob. Ashley? I called out, hearing my own voice echo around the room. Are you okay?
John, don't open the door.
The voice responded even louder, knowing I could hear her.
It's there. Well, I lost balance. It moved.
What? I called, creaking the door open to project my voice better. Ashley, I can't hear.
It's in front of the door.
Ashley screamed hysterically.
Don't open the door.
My hand froze solid, lungs stopping up as well. I slowly pushed the door back closed until it was just barely ajar, pulse thundering in my ears. What? I staggered, hand clenching the knob. Ashley, I have to open the door.
No,
she shouted.
John, you can't. You have to.
The water is rising! I shouted back, looking down to confirm it had risen at least 2 steps since I had entered. Ashley, I have to get out of here. I can't stay. I have to. Panic was beginning to control my breathing, the thought of being trapped clouding over my reason. I threw open the door, not sure if I had even believed Ashley or not. And yet, what greeted me was exactly as she described. Its gaping eyes saw water swim within wrinkled corneas, jaws stretched out of alignment and devoid of skin. What flesh was left was bleached white and gangrenous,
Its twisted body was so malformed I wasn't even sure it had the correct number of limbs anymore, a pile of human anatomy thrown into a blender. My hand slammed the door shut faster than I could even register what I had seen, though the after-image wouldn't leave my sight. Oh, fuck. My heart shuddered violently against my ribs. Oh, Jesus fucking fuck. Water reached the top step, now rising up past the door I had closed. Ashley spoke overhead, though I could no longer hear her. My hands were shaking, the gruesome after-image flashing through my mind. By the time I was able to steady my breathing, the water had risen up another foot past the door. Even standing on the top step, it was almost to my knees. Ashley. I shivered at a volume I knew perfectly well she couldn't hear me at. Instead of a response from the other side, came the quiet sound of scratching. It slowly etched up and down, circling the exterior. My hand tightened further, just in time as the knob suddenly violently yanked sideways. My arm pressed to brace against the closed door, all of my strength immediately employed in a panic response. Despite my continued exerted effort, however, the attempt seemed to have been a one-time test. The other side of the door, now deathly silent. Water reached my waistline. I began to hear shouts from above again, the closed door and splashing water making it impossible to understand. One word, however, sounded almost like move, my brain slowly filling in the gaps with absolutely no evidence to hear the phrase, "Move now," repeated over and over. I knew I was hearing things that weren't there, knew I was panicking beyond rational thought, but I was running out of options. The icy water reached my chest. Still shaking feverishly, I attempted to crack the door and peer through, only to find it considerably harder with the added water pressure. Panic again rose up to grip me, my frantic pulls not budging the door at all. The water began to lift me off the floor, crawling up to my neck. I flailed hysterically, bracing my legs against the walls and yanking one last time. The metal slab opened far more violently than I'd anticipated, a torrent of water spilling out onto the deck, where the corpse no longer was. I crashed against the floor, my hand gripping the door harder as I staggered and righted myself. In the light, I could finally see what I had grabbed from down below, what I had tucked under my arm. A rusty toolbox with a broken-off handle. Though heavy just seconds ago, it began to feel worryingly light as water began to drain from it. If nothing was inside, then the box itself would do. "Ashley?" I called out again with a mix of force and fear that canceled each other out, resulting in a half-hearted yelp. Several seconds of silence ensued before Ashley finally spoke shakily. "Here," she managed to reply. "Don't worry. It's here." I watched the deck for several more seconds, water continuing to flow past my feet. Finally, I managed to will myself forward. The outside wind nearly instantaneously froze my wet clothes to my skin as I looked up to the second-story deck. Ashley was facing away from me, toward the stairs. "Where is it?" I shook my head, having to scream over the wind and fight just to see her through the snow. "What the hell is going on, Ashley?" "Here," she just shouted away from me. "Don't come up the stairs." The boat rocked again, torrents of water suddenly gushing out from the lower deck. I slipped and fought to find balance in the current, finally able to wrench the door closed, though I wasn't sure it would do much good. I got something," I stepped back to be able to see Ashley, feeling the toolbox in my hand. "We have to break the glass!" She was nearly invisible in the fog, but I could see her slowly shake her head. She began slowly backing up. "Stay away from the stairs," she repeated with half the energy of before. "It's coming up." Her posture dissolved further, a sort of hopelessness leaching the air from her lungs. Her back hit the railing, nowhere else to go. My heart tensed, limbs splaying out in a desperate attempt to find some way to help. And yet, nothing reached the top step. No mangled face lurched over the edge, no gnarled hands scraped across the deck. Instead, Ashley's eyes grew wider than they ever had been, and she whirled back around to me. It turned around. The breath escaped her lips. The world stopped, snowflakes grinding to a halt as the deck stretched out before me. The heavy scramble of something tearing its way down metal rungs and across fiberglass splinters was something I knew I would never forget. All the time in the world didn't matter, because the minute it exploded around the corner, the minute I watched the way its crooked limbs yanked it at unimaginable speed across the deck, I couldn't move an inch. Instead, the boat moved for me. A violent spray of water exploded from every direction, darkness surrounding me before I could process that the vessel had finally capsized. Water tore at my lungs, the dull sky above distorted by the surface several feet above me. Dark rocks invaded my peripheries as I fought to determine which way was up. The groaning creak of the sinking behemoth reached my ears before I saw its massive form just feet away, sinking ever so slowly into the black haze. As I finally breached the surface, clawing water out of my eyes and wincing through the driving weather, I could see part of the deck was still above water, though nearly inverted. The boat had been partially sheared down the middle from its own weight after rolling, the larger half now dragging the rest down. Sarah's room was rapidly filling with gushing water, furniture inside floating into the current and splintering against rocks. Ashley was nowhere in sight. My hands scraped at outcroppings, my feet desperately treading water to keep me afloat. Each new path I chose seemed to be thwarted by the current, my movements straining against the force of the water no matter which way I turned. Finally, despite my fingers bending backwards against a slippery crevice, my hand wedged in between two razor's edges, stopping me short. Blood gushed into the water as I used this to hoist myself up and get a better grip on the stone face. The spray of salt water ate at my skin, but the waves finally disappeared beneath me as I rolled myself up onto a ledge. Frost and ice somehow formed despite the constant water washing over the wet surface. The groaning of the vessel brought my attention back from the cusp of unconsciousness, my weary eyes straining to find its sinking form in the fog. Instead, I saw something on what was left of the deck. A dark shape moving frantically enough to catch my eye. I saw an arm repeatedly raise and lower as if reaching for something, or hitting something. My eyes widened as I pulled myself further upwards. Ashley repeatedly struck the glass of the wheelhouse with something I couldn't quite make out. Whatever it wasn't working, however. Her skewed position on deck, holding on nearly upside down, was already lowering into the water, the surf rapidly rising to consume the last of the boat. There was no way she would get inside in time. Even if she did, Even if we called for help and there was somehow a helicopter circling within 10 miles, we weren't going to survive. Not as cold as we were, not as lost as we were. Everything was numb, faceless and cold, distant. Ashley finally tired out as well, grip on the object slipping as she used the last of her remaining strength to simply hold on to the capsizing railing. Water bubbled up past her legs. But no, she wasn't just holding on. She was climbing around to the other side of the wheelhouse. My eyes strained through the weather, my heart leaping as I noticed what she was gunning for. Part of the deck must have been bashed inwards when the vessel capsized, a large portion of the glass wheelhouse under the surface, and beginning to take in water. There was an opening somewhere. Shivers felt so natural now I barely noticed how violently my vision shook as I crawled on my hands and knees across the outcropping. The water no longer felt cold as I slipped inside, no longer felt like anything but the ice around it. The boat going under seemed to be displacing water downwards, a violent undertow swiftly carrying me against a rock beside its submerged hull. I swatted water from my face, feeling my frozen hair stab at my skin as I pulled my way to a window halfway above the surf. The minute I broke the surface again, I locked eyes with Ashley. No words spoken between us. Her limbs were pale and gaunt, blue rings of death around her eyes as her hands mirrored a similarly gruesome hue. One of her shoes was missing, what I had to assume she had tried to bash the glass with earlier. As I struggled to where the black sludge bubbled up inside the wheelhouse, she tumbled into the water, removing her other shoe with fingers that barely seemed to respond. The fractured glass soon allowed water to gush in from every side with a few nudges between Ashley and I. Shards sliced and spilled what was left of our warmth into the dark water, but it wasn't long before our heads resurfaced in the crippled expanse of the wheelhouse. It was hauntingly quiet inside, echoed splashing muffled and distant. Water leaked from every side, instruments lying dead with frozen gauges and dead lights. Light refracted and shifted with each rock of the boat, revealing and hiding entire sections of the darkness before us. I used the dancing caustics to navigate hopelessly forward, brushing past the clearly waterlogged radio panel and throwing open the nearest drawers. Paper and flashlights splashed into the water beside me as I tore through the contents. Ashley tried to follow suit, but after one drawer, her eyes looked up, hand rushing out to grip me. I couldn't feel her touch, but could feel her violent shivers. Her eyes drifted to the cracked glass, the room now perpendicular to the rapidly rising water. I'd rather freeze than drown. I want to go. My hand struck plastic, shallow breaths catching in my throat as I looked to see what I had been hoping for, yet didn't dare think I would find. An emergency hand crank radio. It didn't look waterproof, however, nearly a decade past its prime. Ashley's eyes lit up as well as I yanked out the cumbersome device, the speaker snagging in the drawer before slinging out. I flailed for it, unable to catch it before it splashed beside us in the water we now had to tread in. Both Ashley and I frantically fumbled for it, Ashley getting to it first and feverishly shaking it off. As I snatched it from her and blew on it several times, fighting to keep my arms above the surface, two things dawned on me. One, I wasn't sure I had the strength to crank, but more importantly, even if I did, I didn't know how to operate a radio. Despite everything, I quickly shoved the speaker into its holster,
pressing against the crank with all of my force to produce a sickening whir.
Look for manual.
I shuddered to Ashley, getting the words out chillingly difficult. Ashley said nothing, just looked with haunted eyes beneath us. The drawer we had grabbed it from was now several feet below us in the depths. The far wall of the glass was closing in fast, acting like a ceiling in the vertical room. We both knew we no longer had the breath or strength to swim all the way down and out anymore. We were trapped.
I want to
Ashley shook, pupils constricting as the ship let out a hideous groan.
I want to freeze. I want to freeze. I want to freeze.
Her palm struck the glass above us weakly, barely making any sound. The gurgling of water drowned out any further words. My sluggish heart tripped constantly over itself, feeling like a physical pain in my chest. The base of the radio dipped below the water as my head pressed up against the glass, my frantic button presses not even turning the device on. Finally, in one last desperate attempt, I simply slammed the device against the ceiling above us. A hard crack left it, still entirely intact. My eyes slipped closed as the surface met the ceiling without even giving us a chance for one last breath. The muted rushing of water would have sounded almost peaceful if it weren't for the screaming from my lungs, panic so severe it immediately forced my eyes open again. The radio drifted below us, below Ashley's squeezed-shut eyes and rigid limbs, past the strewn items and drawers, all the way down to the crack we had entered from. But it didn't make it all the way there. A silent whoosh of water spiraled it off its path in slow motion. A pale, ghastly limb reaching up through the crack and swatting it aside. The limb shifted backwards onto itself, roiling like a snake to claw at the ceiling and scrape the rest of its body forward. Its hair drifted in the water like something alien, glass slicing and flaying its face to ribbons as if something being dissected alive. It didn't seem to care, however. Its mangled flesh that had seemed so gruesome and haphazard on land, taking a form in the water that chilled me to my core. The holes and lacerations in its body acted as siphons, mangled half-limbs and gnarled feet pressing together behind it as if a massive fishtail. Its broken, malformed spine was split upwards, riding it like a spined dorsal fin, as its head snapped to us. But it wasn't the first one that had washed over onto the deck, wasn't the one that had stalked me outside the door. I knew that long black hair, knew those dull blue eyes even if they were all that was left of the face. But as Sarah's entrails slithered behind her like tentacles, elongated arms clawing her way up past the debris, several more dark forms passed in my blurry peripheries. Grisly tails wavered softly in the murk, shimmering with exposed muscle before ghastly faces encroached on the glass as if spectators. My mind flashed back to Ashley's words. I'd rather freeze than drown. Now drowning couldn't come fast enough.